know whether you got the dog before the cart or the cart after the dog. When we talk about diet, and this is if you have yeast and we're trying to fight off the yeast, or you know you have a tendency towards having yeast or candida overgrowth, these are some real diet suggestions. I know this is really tough. Number one, avoid all sugars and refined carbohydrates. These yeasts, they send out a little chemical message to your brain, and they say, feed us, okay? And so what happens is your brain all of a sudden wants carbohydrates in order to feed yeast. And it keeps in an ongoing process about the yeast making you want carbohydrates, the carbohydrates feed the yeast. It's a vicious cycle. Most people can get off of most simple carbs and sugars after about usually between 2 and 3 weeks, but boy, it's tough going on. And there's some supplements we can help with sugars in that regard, but getting off sugars, juices that feed it, number one. Number two, eat mostly vegetables, whole grains, preferably not yeast-based. Now, it is a myth that brewer's yeast causes yeast overgrowth. That, I found nothing to back that up. But there are certain yeasts that replicate, like in breads and things like that, that can be a contributing factor to bowel yeast, that can just cause the problem to get worse. So we want high-quality proteins, including lean chicken and fish, as well as beans. But interestingly, I found in most research is beef can be a contributing factor, interestingly enough, to autoimmune and immune disorders, beef and pork both. If you have immune compromise as well too, but immune compromise beef, don't eat pork. You're going to want to stick with a higher quality source of protein with lots of veggies. Eating fermented dairy products like kefirs, yogurts, buttermilk, but not milk. Milk is not a cultured product. It has a lot of sugar, a sugar called lactase. And so you drink a glass of milk, and diabetics of all people should never drink milk because it's full of sugar and it can feed yeast. The cultured products tend to balance out because they do have some good bacteria. Not enough to overwhelm and get rid of yeast, but enough to keep the food that you're eating from contributing to the yeast. Supplement-wise, oh man, number one beyond anything else is going to be probiotics. Those are the good bacteria that can help overwhelm the yeast. The only problem is if your body, particularly your intestines, is full of yeast, in order for the bacteria to deep seed, you have to get it gone. So the dietary changes, and there is tons and tons of research on oregano and grapefruit seed extract, and naturopathic doctors and homeopathic doctors have used these types of products, maybe not in their extracted form, for centuries. So unlike some of the yeast-fighting drugs out there that cause this problem to get worse eventually, this is anecdotal evidence that supports that things like oregano extract and grapefruit seed extract kill yeast. Garlic, phenomenal as a yeast killer. Goes in there, well, phenomenal for a lot of things, blood pressure, cholesterol, my gosh, keeps things from building up on the vascular system. It's an antimicrobial, and I'm coming at it from the aspect of it's an antimicrobial. It kills viral, fungal, and bacterial infections. If you like your garlic, there are deodorized supplements out there that you can take that won't make you smell, that will do the job and helping keeping the yeast under control. Otherwise, if you like garlic and no one around you is offended, do it. Podiarco, we have a local physician that whenever he sees toenail fungus, besides getting the good bacteria and trying to get people to get their sugars down, since he's a proponent of a lower carb diet, he will have his patients soak their feet in something called Podiarco. Now, I've seen success with Podiarco and tea tree oil, which I didn't write on here, that you can topically apply that can help with things like toenail fungus. The only problem is most yeast, by the time it's in your toenails, it means it's systemic.